We are live.
All right. Good evening, Suffern Central. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Lisa Weber, the proud acting superintendent of Suffern Central. I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight. I hope you and your family are well. And I just want to thank our community for your support and patience as we've adopted our robust remote learning and as we transition to hybrid learning. I'm joined this evening by a number of colleagues, Assistant Superintendents, Dr. Lisa Castaldo and Mr. Steve Schloika, Director of Instruction, Sue Perio, our principals, Mr. Pat Breen from Suffern High School, Dr. Andrew Trust from Suffern Middle School, Ms. Angela Aguilar from Cherry Lane, Dr. Ivy from Montebello, Ms. Benatti from RP Connor, Ms. Dress from Biola, and Dr. Castellane from Sloatsburg. So before we get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to take a moment to remind everyone that as we transition to hybrid learning, this is brand new for everybody. None of us have ever done this before. We're working really hard. Our teachers and our administrators are working incredibly hard to bring you the high quality education in a hybrid environment. But remember, this is brand new for all of us. So we appreciate in advance your patience. And I want to share an analogy that was shared by a former colleague of mine from another district. His name is Robert Reese, and he's an ELA teacher, and you'll understand why in a minute. And he gave this analogy about hybrid learning. He said, it's like hosting a barbecue with an open fire pit in your backyard and hosting a gourmet dinner on fine china in your dining room at the same time. And I thought that was just such a wonderful analogy because that's really what our teachers are doing. As they're working with our children in our classrooms, our students in our classrooms, live in person, and at the same time, working with the students that are remote. So when you kind of think about all of that, imagine having a barbecue in your backyard, a dinner party in your dining room, and you're in charge of it all. So I appreciate that analogy, and I think it really helps to kind of put everything in mind. I have a bit of an agenda here I want to go over because I think this is going to be a little bit long, and I want to show the agenda so that when people are looking back at the recording, they're able to see kind of the parts they want to go to. So we're going to start out talking a bit about our hybrid schedule and our COVID-19 protocols. Then we're going to take a walk through a hybrid day, starting from at home, our new app, Aparoo, on the bus, arrival, students' experience in class with hybrid instruction, lunch and recess, encores, supports, dismissal, sports and extracurriculars. And then we're going to finish up with some of our facilities items, ventilation, cleaning and disinfecting, and then we'll have a chance for questions. As of now, the chat on the YouTube is closed, but once we finish the presentation, we will open the chat. You'll be able to ask questions, and I think we'll take questions till about 8:15 or so, maybe a little earlier if we finish the presentation earlier, maybe a little later if it takes a little longer. So we will finish that up about 8:15. And so now we're going to take a minute to take a look at our hybrid schedule. We sent this home again today. We also sent it home last week. So for this week, we are really transitioning to hybrid. What does that mean? That means on Thursday, all of our kindergarten, first grade, and K through 5 foundations, therapeutic support, and DLU students will be coming to school on both Thursday and Friday. On Thursday, cohort A of grade 6 and 9 will come to school, and on Friday, cohort B of grade 6 and 9 will come to school. And that will give all of these students who are new to their school building a chance to be in the building without everybody else. All grades 2 through 12 students will be remote on these 2 days. Next week, Monday, there is no school in observance of Yom Kippur. On Tuesday, we will start our Cohort A in-person learning for K and 1, K through 5 Foundations, TSC and DLU, and grades 2 through 12 Cohort A. Meanwhile, grades 2 through 12 Cohort B will be at home remoting in to their class. On Wednesday, September 30th, all students will be remote, and they will be remote on a 2-hour delay. That was communicated today, the communication that came out today, and we are doing that so that we can give our teachers who, again, are doing hybrid instruction for the first time, we're giving them those 2 hours each Wednesday to collaborate, receive professional development, and additional prep time so that they can give our students the highest quality education. On Thursday and Friday of next week, our Cohort B students will be in person, and our Cohort A students will be at home. The following week, the week of October 5th, which is a full 5-day week, on Monday and Tuesday, we will have K1 and our K5 Foundations, TSC, and DLU will be in on Monday and Tuesday, along with Cohort A of grades 2 through 12, while Cohort B remote in. On Wednesday, again, all students will be remote with the 2-hour delay. And on Thursday and Friday, our grades 2 through 12 Cohort B students will be in, while Cohort A remotes in. Our students who are fully remote will, of course, remote in every day. I am now going to turn this over to Dr. Castaldo, who's going to talk a bit about our COVID-19 protocols.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. How's everyone doing today? I'm sure you're the same as we are, a little confused with all of this, but we're getting through it together. So the protocol that I'm going to discuss first is when a staff or student exhibits symptoms or has a positive COVID-19 test. Now, the first line of defense on this is that daily screener that everyone is filling out every day that they are in attendance in the building. So all of the staff are filling it out. All of the families are filling it out for their students. So you're going to fill that out for each one of your children. When you fill that out, you're certifying that you do not have any of the COVID-19 symptoms, of which there are many, including fever. So you're going to be taking a temperature each day. As students enter the building, we also have the thermometers that will take temperatures as well, just as a second step. If once in the building, a student or a staff member feels ill, they will be isolated immediately and sent home, with the direction that you will go to your healthcare provider, who will determine whether you need a COVID-19 test or who will give you a letter certification that you can return to school, that it's not a COVID-19 illness. It's best for you to take your child, or if you're a staff member, take yourself to your own doctor who is aware of any pre-existing conditions you may have that may look like some of these COVID-19 symptoms. So perhaps you have allergies. That looks like the runny nose, the cough that we're seeing in school. Once you have either a letter saying you can return from your healthcare provider, or you go and take the COVID-19 test and it's negative, you can return to school. If it's positive, you will let the school district know, and we will work in coordination with the Department of Health to determine what the next steps are. So the next slide I have details a little more in depth what we would do if it is a positive COVID-19 test. So it starts at the bottom, really. This is an escalation of response. So the bottom is, again, what I just discussed, students or staff presenting with symptoms. Next step up are people who were a contact of a contact, someone who may have been in contact of someone who had a, positive COVID-19 test, and those are the steps we would follow. Both of the lines with the 2s next to them are what we would do if there's a COVID test that's pending or someone who is quarantined. And the top one is if we have a COVID positive person in the school building. You can see that is the only row that has a column marked closing, where it says a closing is probable or possible, depending on the direction from the local Department of Health. Any staff member or family who wants to report a positive COVID test can contact myself or Mr. Larry Matone, who is our assistant superintendent for HR, or your local school building nurse, who will also get in contact with us. Again, none of the steps we take are taken in isolation of just us deciding. We have a lot of collaboration with the Rockland County Department of Health. We have our own dedicated nurse practitioner who is assigned to Suffern Central at the Department of Health, as well as of today, they've appointed for Rockland County 2 different school district liaisons. So we know that that is who we will be working with whenever we have any type of COVID positive or negative test that's been done. Now, I think I give you back to Mrs. Weber, who will speak to you a little bit about walking through what the day will look like for your child when they're here.
Yes. So we're going to take a walk through a hybrid day. So our hybrid day starts at home. It starts with the checklist that was sent in today's communication, which talks about first submitting the daily coronavirus student screening form, which is an app which I will get to on the next couple of slides. So I'm not going to go into the detail here. Packing your child's backpack with everything he or she needs. Wearing sneakers if it's a PE day. We won't be changing at the middle school and high school, no gym lockers. So you'll want to make sure you're wearing sneakers and appropriate clothing for gym. And your child should be wearing a face mask and have a spare face mask in their backpack. We will today, this form did also include information about meal service, which we'll get to a little later in this presentation, and our 2-hour delay virtual Wednesdays. So while you're still home, your child, you will be filling out the Operu app for your child. This is the email that came today. So if you want to check your email, you should see an email that looks like this. I did get, for the employees who are also parents in the district, I did get a separate email as a parent than the one I use as an employee. But good news, it did have all 4 of my children on it. So I was excited about that because I was worried I was going to have to fill it out 4 different times. So look for this email. The actual app, these are some screenshots from my employee one. We don't have the student one open yet because we don't have students yet, so I wasn't able to access mine. But you can see, you probably can't read it. The font's pretty small, but basically it asks if you've had a positive test in the past 14 days. It asks if you have any of these symptoms. And then it asks if you've experienced any of these symptoms in the last 24 hours. And these symptoms are a subjective fever, new or worsening cough, shortness of breath, muscle aches, fatigue, sore throat, new loss or taste of smell, and a temperature of 100 degrees or greater. So we all know we're hard workers. Many of us come to work when we feel a little not great. We have a little scratchy throat. Maybe many of us in the past have come to work in that scenario. Many of us send our children to school. At this time, it's really important that if your child is developing any of these symptoms, please keep your child home. The good news is your child will be able to join their class remotely. If they're feeling well enough to participate, but not well enough to go to school, they can join their class remotely. So as you're filling this out, please be sure to note those symptoms. If you answer yes, then you should keep your child home. If you're an employee, then you should stay home. Then you're going to check off that the temperature has been taken and it's under 100. You're asked if you've had any proximate contact with an individual diagnosed, and you're asked if you've traveled outside of the area in the last 14 days. The last thing we do is we sign off that we've responded no to all of the above questions. That does not include saying yes that you attest your temperature was taken, because you're not actually saying yes there, you're just checking it off. And then there's a place to sign at the bottom. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, it's 6 questions, yes or no, and 5 yes or no's and a checkbox. So it takes I mean, it's really pretty quick. The longest part of it is probably taking the temperature. So it's really important that everyone does this. Signing up for the app. We did have a question. If your child is fully remote, do you need to register for the app? If your child is never going to step foot in the building, I guess that's up to you. But if your child is planning on participating in sports or any other possible extracurricular activities later in the year, then this app will need to be completed. Also, we'll get to sports later, but if your child is participating in sports on a day they're not in attendance, they will need to complete this before attending their practice or game. And now I am going to hand this over to Mr. Schleicher, who's going to talk about transportation.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to start just before we get on the bus, believe it or not. We'd like to remind everyone to practice social distancing at the bus stop, getting on and off the bus, and just a reminder that social distancing is 6 feet. Face coverings or masks must be worn when you're on the bus. The bus drivers will have a small supply of masks should a student require one. All high traffic touch areas on the buses will be cleaned and disinfected after each individual run, and the entire vehicle will be cleaned and disinfected once daily. The products that they are using all follow CDC and Department of Health guidelines. The cleaner is a mist spray, will be used on the seats, railings, and any high touch area by students, and it dries in a matter of moments. And a daily consisting will clean the bus by sweeping and a final treatment of the spray on all areas of the bus. The drivers and other transportation employees that are used are very well trained on the CDC and Department of Health Safety guidelines. Now I will pass it over to Mr. Castelline for the next slide.
Thank you, Mr. Schleicher. So I'm going to talk about arriving to school. So drop-off will look a little bit different in each and every building. So please be on the lookout for details from each of your buildings, just to know exactly where the drop-offs are going to take place, what times the buildings open, and the different procedures. So when the students arrive and they get off the bus, there'll be people outside waiting to greet them, to bring them in, make sure they're maintaining their social distance. As they walk through the door, we'll have temperature checks. As you can see in the picture to the right, there's a thermometer. So the schools have all been outfitted through the entrances that are going to be used for all the students and staff. When the students come in, they'll be able to take their temperature, and this will ensure that the temperature is accurate, and they'll be able to go to their classes. When you enter the buildings, all the buildings will have arrows on the floors, which will be one way. In most cases, the hallways are divided in half, and they follow a similar pattern to the road where you're walking forward on the right side. At Suffern Middle School and Suffern High School, there will be no lockers in use, so that's important for the students to know as well. Next slide. So masks must cover the nose and the mouth. They have to be of cloth material, and gaiters are fine. I know we had a lot of questions that pertained to the types and styles, but as long as the mask is able to stay up on the face, covering the mouth and the nose, and it can cover the neck as well. We just want to make sure that is something that won't slip off. During the day, there will be mask breaks. Then the teachers will build those in. And while the students are eating, they will be able to remove their masks. I think a little bit later, there's going to be some talk about the cafeterias. At the elementary level, I will let you know that all the students will be separated by 6 feet. And at that time, they'll be able to remove their masks and eat their lunch. Next slide, please. In the classroom, so protocols, the teachers will be encouraging hand washing, hand sanitizing. We have hand sanitizing stations throughout the building. Wiping desks, all the classrooms will have access to wipes, so we'll be able to wipe those desks even though they are not sharing the desks during the day at the elementary level. And at the middle school and high school level, they will also be able to wipe their desks between classes. Social distancing will definitely be maintained, and we'll continue to encourage students to stay 6 feet apart. In some of the schools, we'll have outdoor options. So students might have classes underneath tents, or depending on the weather, they might just be outside. And those are just some other options that we are looking at for our students. Next slide. I think this is Mrs. Perio.
It is, thank you. So one of the things that I want to reiterate is Mrs. Weber's opening message about patience. So as we shift into hybrid instruction, patience is going to be required on the part of all. Our teachers are going to be trying to do that balancing act of teaching students who are in front of them and students who are remote. They are also having to learn how to use brand new technology, and technology that they might have had before but have never had to use in this way. As we have been sort of doing dress rehearsals and playing around with the tech, what we've realized is sometimes it takes time to set up. Some of our teachers are shifting from class to class, and sometimes the setup takes about 5 minutes. So one of the things that you noticed in the slides leading up to this one is that students will have their temperatures checked getting off the bus. There is social distancing in the hallways. All of the routines that used to be very quick for us are no longer going to be very quick. When students come back in from lunch and recess, they're going to need to wash their hands or hand sanitize. Tables are going to be wiped down periodically. So as our teachers are trying to balance teaching the students who are in front of them, as well as the students who are remote, please anticipate that they're going to be going slowly at first, especially. Also anticipate that there might be a lag, and that start times and end times for periods might be adjusted for our remote students to accommodate what is happening physically with the students who are with teachers in class. So with those thoughts in mind and that message of maintaining patience, we are just going to highlight some of the things that you'll see in the slide. So students working remotely will join their regularly scheduled classes to learn with students who are in school. So teachers will be watching their students on a monitor and also watching the kids who are sitting in front of them. And then this part is really important as well. Teachers will flexibly design instructional experiences to best meet the ages, stages, and needs of their students, as well as the goals of each content area. Instruction may look different across classrooms, grade levels, and subject areas. In fact, it always does. So that is nothing that is atypical. Our math teachers might teach with different teaching methods than our science teachers or our humanities teachers. There will be differences. Teachers may adapt and adjust their instructional methods and approaches over time as everyone adjusts. We call this being responsive to our students and our community, and that is what is going to be expected and will be happening, so you can anticipate that. Students will work synchronously and asynchronously within each instructional block. So even in a classroom, a teacher is not directly instructing a student for an entire block or for an entire period. Students have opportunities for independent practice and work, and that is to be anticipated, and that is the type of work that they'll be doing asynchronously. All right, next slide.
Okay, I'm just going to remind Ms. Perio to all of our presenters to speak a little bit more slowly so that the closed caption can keep up with us.
Okay, not my forte. All right. The other piece that has come up repeatedly, and it's not just in Suffern Central, but nationally, is a discussion about screen time and digital health. I had mentioned this in the secondary meeting a few weeks back, that really the messaging that is out there right now from all of the professionals and through all of the research is that increased technology use is not inherently good or bad. And it really is the quality versus the quantity. So the information on this slide came from a National Geographic article that was published on September 14th. They also had published a similar article back in April. It's been an ongoing national conversation. So what some of the things that they were recommending, the experts that were cited in the article, are setting up workstations that are ergonomically comfortable for students so that they're sitting with good posture and they can have, if they're writing something, they can sit, and hold their pencil grip properly. Also setting up breaks. So one of the things that I thought was a great recommendation was what they were referring to as 20-20-20. So this is for your eyes and to protect your eyes when we are working on screens a lot. So taking a screen break every 20 minutes to look 20 feet away for at least 20 seconds. So again, that's for the visual health piece. And then the other piece they were saying that we actually have more control over right now is setting boundaries on recreational screen time. So a lot of our students, their screen time breaks involve more screen time. So they're shifting from their school screen over to their TikTok screen or their Minecraft screen or whatever the game du jour is. So I think it's setting the boundaries around the recreational time to make sure that we are shutting it down early enough so students are getting adequate sleep, physical activity, maintaining social connections, family time, things that are those off-screen opportunities. And the other piece is if you're finding that your child is having a hard time sustaining attention, communicate with your child's teacher. That's valuable information for them to know. And especially if more than one parent is telling them that, they'll be able to adjust more readily.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that's me. Hi, everybody. Good evening. All right. Okay, so the good thing is that all of our students do have devices in their hands at this time, which is incredible. Our tech department, along with our buildings, worked extremely hard to make sure that this happened. Also, what we're hearing throughout throughout the district is that our kids are getting used to their devices that they're over these last couple of weeks. Also, so they're finding it easy to navigate their devices, whether it's an iPad or a Chromebook. But we do want to let you know that there is an optional bring your own device at the high school level at this time. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about tech and your child. Also, hybrid students, really, it's important that they bring their devices charged into school daily. So, and they are going to be bringing their devices back home at night every night. So it's really important that they charge their devices. Those are like, you put it right back in their book bag in the next morning. They put their devices back in there and they're ready to go. And then they bring those devices home on a daily basis. So that's very important. Also, we'd like to remind everybody that our tech department has done some tech work throughout the district with some appointments and that sort of thing, but a lot of the issues have been handled. So we are reverting back to doing devices and tech help at the school directly, but there is support that's coming to our building levels to help with any type of tech support that you guys may have. So again, if you have any tech problems, please contact the buildings and we will direct you to the appropriate tech department to help you with that. Okay. All right. I think that's it. All right, Ms. Benatti, it's you.
Thank you, Mrs. Aguilar. Good evening, everyone. So I'm here to talk about breakfast and lunch. So you'll notice in the pictures there what the cafeteria looks like in our schools. You'll notice that there are desks. They are 6 feet apart. The students are socially distanced. You're going to find when your kids come to school that breakfast and lunch is served daily. And we are so excited that it is free for all students. And my understanding is this is probably through December. So that's awesome. So there's no lunch code to remember. When students arrive in the morning, we're going to have a series of grab and go breakfast carts at the entrance locations. Children will just grab a bag and go. It will be a cold option. And everything that they need is in the bag. The juice, if there's a milk, a fork, whatever they need, it's in the packaging. So there's no need to stop and grab anything. And then we're going to have, for students that are home who are in need of meals, the meals will go home with students on Tuesdays and Fridays. So if your child is in cohort A, they're in Monday, Tuesday, they will take home their meals for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and so on. The students that are in cohort B, who attend school on Thursdays and Fridays, will take their food home on Fridays. It is a large bag, so prepare. So your children will be socially distanced in the bus with their bag. So that's an awesome opportunity. It's available to everyone and it is free. Also, for the cafeteria, when it's lunchtime, just like breakfast, it's a similar grab and go. There will be a hot and a cold option. On the elementary level, when your children arrive to school, part of our attendance procedure will be to ask your children, are you getting lunch today? Will you be getting a hot option or the cold? We posted our lunch menus on Peach Jar. They're on our school sites under the Families tab, if you haven't looked yet. They are a very, very modified, scaled down lunch. So I believe this Thursday is like chicken tenders or chicken poppers. And then it's a cold option. So we will have options for students with allergies. So the nurse will continue as always to work with the food service providers to make sure that there's appropriate options for your children. But very important, as part of that backpack leaving in the morning, it's what am I doing for lunch? So make sure your kids, and especially in the elementary level, they know that in their lunchbox could be just a snack. And then they're going to get the hot or cold lunch. So please, on the elementary level, communicate with your child. They don't always understand that the lunchbox could be just for snack. So we will ask them in the morning. We are planning to give a lunch count to the cafeteria, to the kitchen. They will then prepare the meals. And then when the students arrive in the cafeteria, everyone will be seated similar to the bus. They will arrive in the cafeteria and they'll fill in the seats by cohort from the furthest away to the closest to avoid any passing of other students. On the elementary level, they will raise their hand. If they're getting the cold option, it will be delivered to their desk. If they're getting the hot option, same thing, it'll be delivered to their desk. And then everything is inside the bag, the milk, the juice, and all the options that go along with the meal. And again, it's free. So please just make sure in the morning that you communicate with your child what their lunch plan is going to be. And then if your child is fully remote, meal pickup will be available at the Suffern Middle School. And on the website, there is additional information. So we're excited. We work very closely with our food service. And they're doing a fantastic job. They've been feeding everyone since we closed for the pandemic, and amazing people working tirelessly to feed our children. So we are very happy to work with them each and every day.
Thank you, Ms. Bonatti. I do just want to add, at the middle school and high school, where all of the students will not fit in the cafeteria, we'll also be utilizing gym space for lunch. Set up similarly, socially distanced. And at the high school, we also will use some classrooms for lunch. Oh, recess.
Thank you. Dr. Ivy from Montebello Elementary School, and I get to talk about the best part of the day, recess. So for recess, first of all, obviously, we want students to be out there and have social interactions. It's so important for their social emotional well-being. So recess is nothing that we are looking to get rid of. They will look a little bit different. So just like everything else, students will have to wear their masks when they're out at recess. And we are going to avoid any of the climbing structures or the slides, but students will be able to use their swings right now. And at the elementary level, we've spoken with the lunch monitors, or we'll be speaking with the lunch monitors about different no-contact sports or games that they can play. We found some great websites among the 5 of us that we've shared with the monitors as well, some really amazing ideas out there. Some of them are old school types of games that as adults we might be more familiar with, but the monitors are really looking forward to trying some new and different things with the students this year. There will be monitors. We will be enforcing the 6-foot distance as much as possible. They will be able to have freedom as they go around the playground. It will be unstructured mostly, and again, just make sure that students are safe. We will make sure that they are sanitizing and that there's definitely time after recess for proper hand sanitizing. But even on the way out after they have lunch, they will be sanitizing as well. We are looking to avoid any kind of sharing of any kind of equipment. However, as parents, if you would like, please feel free to send your children in with another box of crayons or maybe some sidewalk chalk so that students can draw on the ground, or if it's a rainy day, or if it's when it gets too cold when we're indoors, then they'll have an opportunity to do some coloring and many different things that some of the monitors are thinking of. We were talking about some lanyards and making some jewelry, or even a knitting club. All of these things that are out there are great ideas, and our PTAs are amazing in that they're looking to help us support whatever we can to make sure that recess, indoor or outdoor, is an enjoyable experience for our students.
Great. Thank you. For our encores, we've had a number of questions, particularly about physical education. We want to be outdoors as much as possible. We will not be using gym lockers at the middle school and high school, and there will be no pool use at the high school. There'll be no sharing of equipment. Masks will be worn at all times, and students space 12 feet apart during activity. So the recommendations for social distancing when there is heavy breathing involved are that we're 12 feet apart, not 6 feet apart. So we will be practicing that to the extent possible. And our PE teachers have also been working very hard to come up with alternative activities that engage students physically, but meet these requirements. In music, chorus and wind instruments also have the 12-foot socially distanced guidelines, so we're prepared for that. When possible, these classes may be held outdoors. In our larger buildings that have auditoriums, they may also be held in the auditorium where they can socially distance the 12 feet. Orchestra, which does not involve any wind instruments, can be held with students 6 feet apart. At the high school, the music lockers can be used. Even though we're not using the regular lockers, we understand that many of these instruments are just far too big to be carrying around all day. So we will allow the music lockers to be used at the high school. And in art, we will have no shared materials. So students will be using their own materials so as not to, and they'll be socially distanced and as they do. All right. Support services, that would be Dr. Castaldo.
Hi, that's me again. As you know, I hold a couple of different hats, and one of them is as the head of the support services for the district. So the support services are any ways that we help your child succeed in school, and that takes many different forms. It's taken the form of self-contained classes, special ed services, related services, IE type services that push into the classroom, AIS services, RTI services. All of these services are still occurring, whether they're on an IEP or Section 504 plan, or whether they're non-mandated under the RTI umbrella or the AIS umbrella. They are all occurring, but like everything else this year, they're occurring a little differently. So depending on what environment your child is in, meaning they're in person or they're learning remote on a given day, they will, if that's their day to receive services, receive their services in that manner. All of the students will get what is mandated, just either in an in-person or a remote format. One of the things that we're really being careful to support students in this year is their social emotional well-being. So we are making sure that we take it slow with children. They've been through a big change this year, as we all have. So we're being sure to support that social emotional well-being as the students return both to the remote and now this in-person learning format. We're going to be sure to be building those relationships with the children and making those really strong so that they build the grit that they need. Additionally, you may have heard about Yale EI. I have the mood meter behind me on the wall. Anyone who's seen me present before knows that my home office has that, as does my work office, because Yale EI is the cornerstone of socio-emotional learning in Suffern Central. We are in our third year of implementation, which means it was the family rollout year, the year where we bring the 4 anchor tools, and you may see that on the bottom right, I guess, when you're looking at the screen, is the ruler approach, and those 4 anchor tools. Those are the tools of success we've been using with our students in school, and we will be rolling those out to the families. So we'll be showing you how to use those 4 socio-emotional anchor tools to support your family well-being and socio-emotional strength as well. We have numerous counselors and clinicians on our support services staff here at Suffern Central. And we're going to be sure this year to be using those counselors to additionally build relationships with the children, to support children, any of the children who are in need, not just the ones who have it on a specialized mandated plan, but all of the students who may need at this point a little bit extra boost in being successful in school. I think I turn it over now to dismissal, and that I'm not sure which principal is doing dismissal.
Dr. Trustin, I can speak to that.
Great.
Good evening, everyone. Again, we're excited that students are coming back. And just to talk a little bit about dismissal, we know it's going to vary from building to building. We all have our different protocols. The biggest piece is that we need to ensure that there's physical distancing as the students leave the building. So that's probably going to look like a staggered approach in most buildings, taking a little bit longer. Again, where the bell used to ring and everybody would leave at once, we're going to stagger that approach, certainly at the high school, and I know at the middle school as well. So it might slow things down initially, but again, most of the students taking the buses won't be impacted by more than maybe 5 minutes or so. For parents that are picking up, certainly at the high school, we're just going to ask you to start, coming to the building at around 2:20, which will give the buses enough time to leave, as well as the senior drivers. Once they've cleared the campus, you'll be allowed to pull up through the circle and pick up your child, and there'll be plenty of room for them to socially distance on the fields and in the front of the school.
At the middle school, we have a new pickup procedure this year in order to alleviate some of the congestion on Montebello Road and create a more safe environment for the students. The parents will pick up entering off Hemian Road and are going to follow a route around to the back of the building where there's a new entrance. It's also the drop-off in the morning so that they could pick up and then head right out to Montebello Road. We were just having so much congestion on Montebello Road in the past, and we do expect a lot of students to be driven to school. So we wanted to be able to alleviate that and make it a little bit more streamlined.
All right, so sports and extracurricular activities. Again, knowing the reasons why many students love school, I think these are at the top of the list. And I want to confirm that we're completely committed to these areas for our students. We know many of them look forward to participating in them. So let me just give you an update with Suffern High School. With respect to our clubs, we'll be running a club expo to introduce all of the clubs to the students this year. That'll be a virtual video that they can see. Normally we host that in the gym and all the students, crowd in to see what's happening. But again, that'll be a virtual expo that they can watch and see what clubs are available to them. The dates and times will be provided as well. And with sports, we also know that that's a big piece. And with more clarity, we know that that's beginning on September 29th with boys soccer, girls soccer, field hockey, cross country, and girls tennis. And unfortunately, football was pushed to March 1st, along with boys volleyball, girls volleyball, and fall cheerleading. So there'll be more information as we approach those dates, as this is probably going to be, reevaluated multiple times throughout the year. Important to know, though, that students must wear masks when competing and practicing. And it's important that they bring their own water. Normally, we would share water between the teams, but again, we want to reduce the surfaces they're touching and sharing. Also, if you're a hybrid or remote student, or you're obviously on a day where you're home, you will need to find transportation to the practice.
Clubs at the middle school, we do want to run as many clubs as possible. So we have arranged that they will have virtual meetings. Any clubs that can conduct activities outside will, the green team, and will just do their normal hikes and the Keep Rockin' Beautiful event if it happens, and just have a socially distanced event when they do them. If necessary, our extracurricular music groups will also do virtual performances. We haven't made a final decision on that. We want to kind of see where the world goes. We will start implementing online fundraising drives for our clubs for the different fundraising needs. As far as modified sports is concerned, there hasn't been a final decision made by the region on that, but they expect to have a decision on that in the next couple weeks.
Thank you. And I think we're going to take a look at some facilities items that came up a lot in the questions.
Yes, I'll speak of the ventilation systems. Our ventilation systems in our buildings are utilizing the highest rated filter possible per the manufacturer's specifications. That's all of our HVAC systems, meaning our heating, ventilating, and air conditioning systems, meaning forced air and univent of type. All of our buildings are also controlled by a very sophisticated building management system, which are taking measurements of our buildings and our rooms all the time, continuously. So these systems are designed to maintain the proper airflow, the fresh air rates, and air changes per hour of every space in our buildings. We talked a little bit about opening windows in some of the questions that we have, and that actually could hinder the efficiency and the effectiveness of some of these systems to operate. Because these systems are designed to create a very controlled space. So whenever you open the window, you also let in other things like allergens and things that we cannot control and we cannot filter. So I don't want to say that, you can't, open your window slightly, one or two, but I would not open a whole host of windows in the whole room and open them wide open, because it will definitely hinder the ability of the system to be able to heat and cool properly and maintain a filtered environment. Moving to our next slide. For the majority and use of our best piece of disinfecting equipment, as you see in the picture here, is our electrostatic sprayers. These sprayers on average can provide disinfection of all hard surfaces at a rate of approximately 16,000 square feet per hour, believe it or not. Our school bathrooms will be cleaned and disinfected at a minimum of 3 times a day. Our hallways will be cleaned and disinfected on a continuous basis when students and staff are not present in those areas. All of our common areas, for example, our gym, library, cafeteria, playgrounds, conference rooms, copy rooms, fitness centers, etc., will be cleaned and disinfected also when not in use or occupied. Our classrooms will be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected at the end of every day. Our custodial personnel will be redirected and be given additional hours and or reassigned to perform cleaning and disinfecting of all the school buildings to ensure proper cleaning and disinfecting procedures are met throughout our district. Just a reminder, our students should not bring their own cleaning supplies. The district has plenty of cleaning supplies, so we again remind you, please do not bring your own complete cleaning supplies. I will hand it back now to Mrs. Weber for any questions.
All right, so we're going to give Mr. Coronado a minute to get the chat feature up and running on YouTube. In the meantime, I do want to, I forgot to say one thing when I talked about the Aparoo app. If you did not receive your email about the Aparoo app, please, the email I posted on the slide earlier, it would have, mine came sometime this morning. If you have not received it as a parent, please contact your building and let them know. I want to thank all of the administrators for joining me this evening to share this information. I appreciate all that you have done to help get us ready for hybrid. This has been an incredibly detailed task. We've all been opening schools for years, but this year, every aspect of opening is different and new. And I really appreciate your efforts and your attention to all these details. So thank you.
Okay.
All right, so Ms. Mermelstein is going to facilitate our questions because most of us can't see them. So she will facilitate our questions and we will answer them as they come in.
Can you explain a little bit more about the 2-hour delay schedule?
Sure. So the 2-hour delay is for students only. So on Wednesdays, starting next Wednesday, not tomorrow, tomorrow's a regular day, starting next Wednesday, September 30th, students will start their day 2 hours later than they normally do. And they will be doing that so that our teachers can use those 2 hours to collaborate, additional prep time, and to receive professional development, to take part in professional development, since this hybrid learning is brand new for everybody. So this will give them, give our teachers and our administrators, our staff, time to strategically address student needs as they arise and adapt our hybrid instruction to meet our students' needs. So that's the reason for it. From the student experience, they'll be starting their day 2 hours later, and they'll have what is a building level 2-hour delay schedule. So usually what that means is that the timeframes are somewhat compressed. And maybe a student doesn't have everything that they would normally have in a day. But we've designed the days so that the students at the elementary level will still be sure to get all of their mandated and AIS and enrichment services. And sometimes the lunch will also be the time set aside for lunch may or may not be adjoining the 2-hour delay. So each building will communicate the details of the daily schedule for that building will be communicated by the building.
Great, thank you. Can you elaborate a little bit on technology use in terms of students bringing their own laptops to school? And then with that, are they going to be able to connect to the Wi-Fi? And with that, are they going to be logged into the Google Meet while they are at their desk?
Okay, so let's take the first two parts of that question. At the high school only for now, we are going to allow students to bring their own device and connect to the Wi-Fi. In order to do that, there'll be a form that they submit and they're going to sign off, and we'll then allow them to connect to the Wi-Fi. So they can't just walk in with 6 devices and log them in. The intention is they're only logging in their primary learning device, Chromebook, laptop, whatever it is, iPad, and not that they're logging in their phone and their friend's phone. So we want to measure to be able to control that, but they will be given access to the Wi-Fi, yes. The second part of the question about being on the Google Meet, that will be on the teacher's discretion. Sometimes they may be, sometimes they may not be. There may be times when students that are in person are partnered or working in a breakout room with students who are at home, continuing to build community and connection, but it really depends on the teacher's lesson that day.
Great, thank you. Do we have any details about, I think, high school marching band and concerts at this point?
So, yes, so marching band, tomorrow, actually, I'm meeting with Mr. Schwartz. We're going to begin setting up practice times for them to practice, really. I believe competitions aren't a go yet, but we know how badly the team wants to get out there and start practicing. So we're going to make that happen as soon as possible. Concerts right now, obviously we're in a remote session, so any concerts we do right now would be virtual. But we're always going to look and reevaluate that as time goes on and things may change.
Great. What does it look like when kids are getting their temperatures taken at school? Are they going to be waiting outside? Are they going to be in a line? How does that work?
So I don't know if one of the principals wants to talk a little bit about arrival, but in general, the students will be arriving more slowly off the bus in the morning, and they'll be socially distanced as they're walking in. The bigger schools have more locations for and the thermometers are wrist thermometers, and they only take about a second. You just walk right by the thermometer and you wave your wrist in front of it and it says your temperature, normal temperature, and you move on. It really takes, I don't know, a second and a half maybe. It's a very quick process. Students there will be adults in the area keeping kids socially distanced. They will be maybe waiting outside if there's a large arrival at once, though obviously in inclement weather we'll address that. I don't know if any of the principals want to add anything to that.
I can add on to that, Mrs. Weber. So we also positioned a wrist thermometer on either side of the entryway. So we have multiple entrances this year due to our COVID guidelines. So for example, at RP Connor, the kindergarten first grade students will enter through the K1 doors. And as they're entering, there are wrist thermometers on the right and left side of the hallway. And there are 2 staff members there to monitor the reading. And if a student was to have a temperature, they will be motioned to another section of the hallway where they can be then evaluated by the nurse. The 2nd through 5th grade students enter through the main doors. And again, there are thermometers on either side of the wall. And there are 2 people there monitoring. And then if a student is, for some reason, is alerted, they will be moved to the other area of the hallway. We are really cognizant that we are not going to start to gossip or talk about students that are maybe moved to the side. Sometimes thermometers don't work correctly, so we don't want kids to go back to class and say, "Ooh, my friend, she got stopped." And we really don't want to start like a crazy hysteria over the wrist thermometer. So we ask that you respect people's privacy. We ask that when your students come home, that you trust the school and you trust our process, and that you trust that we are following all the guidelines for the CDC to ensure that everyone in our building is safe at all times.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's some specific building questions, specifically for the middle school guitar students. Are they bringing their own guitars or using the instrument like they do? And in the middle school, if they're in band, are they carrying their instrument around all day?
We would, as for the guitar students, if students have guitars and they want to bring them to the school, they will be permitted to bring them. We will find an area for them to put them, to store them. Same goes for middle school instruments. They are difficult to carry around. Some of them are bigger than the students, but we do have areas where they will be able to store them.
Great. Dr. Truss, can you briefly or quickly explain again the drop-off and pickup procedures at the middle school for those that are not riding the bus?
So we have a map that's going to be posted onto the website. It went out to the 6th grade parents today. It's going to be posted to the website tomorrow, and we'll go out in a letter to the 7th and 8th grade parents by the end of the week. But essentially the pickup is moving from the Montebello Road entrance to the Hemian Road entrance, and there's a clearly painted pathway where there will be people giving directions for the first couple weeks of school to a new drop-off and pickup area, which is on the back side of the school across from the football field. It just allows us to accommodate more cars and prevents a backup on Montebello Road. And it's honestly safer for the students because they just walk right into the building and right out. The cars pull right up to the door. We created 4 parking spots so that cars can move quickly through that area. So it's just about student safety and the congestion on Montebello Road.
Great. Can we talk a little bit about back to the COVID testing and screening? What happens when a student is asymptomatic or maybe has allergies and not COVID? Are they sent home?
So it would be difficult for us to know exactly what it is without having some background knowledge of the child. So that's not an answer that's a black and white for sure. But a child who's presenting with symptoms in school, be that a fever, a cold, runny nose, maybe their eyes are bothering them like mine just were, so I switched from contacts to glasses. Anything like that presents in the school, the child's going to be sent to the school nurse who is going to evaluate the child. The child will be isolated, the child will be sent home. mom and dad are going to be told to take the child to your healthcare provider, who would have better background knowledge about the student and would be able to tell you whether you should get your child a COVID-19 test or whether this is something related to allergies that the child has, and then provides us with documentation and a note that lets us know that.
Great. And just along the same lines with safety and protocol, are students allowed to bring their own hand sanitizer? And also, is there the option of being able to wash your hands before lunch and other times, not just use hand sanitizer?
Yes and yes. Yes, they can bring their own hand sanitizer. They are asked to use it just themselves and not share it. And yes, students will be able to wash their hands with soap and water before lunch and after lunch.
And if they do bring their own hand sanitizer, please don't use it on the bus. It's not allowed on the bus. So it has to stay in the backpack on the bus.
Okay. How will the remote cohort participate in gym and other specials? Gym in particular, especially if it's outside.
So on days that the PE classes, the in-person PE classes are going outdoors, the PE teacher will give instructions to the remote learners on what they can do during that time. So it may be a similar activity. It may be a choice of certain asynchronous activities, but there will be some direction from the PE teacher about what is expected, the children are expected to do.
Music will do the same thing, Mrs. Weber.
Great. Sorry, I'm just reading through these. What about at the high school, will students be able to pick where they eat lunch in the designated areas?
Right now, yes, we think we have it set up so that if you want to eat in the cafeteria, you may do so, as well as the gymnasium. The big shift for the high school will be they're not eating in the hallways, so everyone will have to be in one of those designated spaces. If a group of friends want to meet in a room, that's fine, but it's capped at a certain amount, and we have supervision for those areas as well.
Great. In terms of charging devices, are there charging stations in the classrooms? Can students bring their own chargers? What should the plan be?
So the first choice is that students come to school with a charge device. There's no way we can have enough charging stations at the school. We gave every child we gave a device to, we also gave them a charger. So that charger for that device is at home with the child. Understanding that there will be days, it happens to me at least once a week, that my device is not as charged as I would like it to be when I get to work. So we have some alternative charging, but students should, first choice is to come to school with a charge device. Second choice is to bring a charger with them. And the third choice would be depend on school to charge their device.
We should also add that parents cannot drop off a forgotten computer or a forgotten lunch or water bottle. So it's really important at nighttime you lay out the materials that you need. My son has been hybrid now for 3 weeks. Every night he packs up his backpack. He leaves the laptop on the bench and plugs it in so that when he goes to school, his device is ready to go. So that should be part of your evening routine. So in the morning when you're rushing out, because trust me, when you have to go back to school, it is not as easy as I remembered it being, trying to juggle work and school and drop off. So I highly recommend from a mommy that you try that. This way you don't forget.
Thank you. And our checklist that we shared earlier and that was in today's communication, we recommend you consult that checklist. All of these items are reminders on that checklist.
And Mrs. Weber, today when the tech department was in our building, they also shared that if they lower the brightness a little bit, it uses the battery a lot slower. So you don't need it to be fully bright. It's not even good for their eyes to be that bright. So they might want to look at the brightness on it and lower it down a little bit. We tried that today, and that did help with some of the staff.
Great suggestion. Thank you.
Great. Back to COVID questions. we're getting a bunch of questions about asymptomatic COVID. Is there testing that's happening? And is there any plans to deal with it? In addition, what is the plan should a student or a teacher become positive in terms of notifying other students in the class or the building? And do we know what the quarantining will be?
So all of that is highly individualistic. I want to say that I'd be able to give you a set answer, but all of it depends on the individual circumstances of the child or the faculty member, and what direction we are given by the Department of Health. It seems that every time I do speak to the Department of Health, each of the answers are slightly different because they're based on what are the individual circumstances and specifics of the student or the faculty member or whoever is involved with the issue. So we're going to take our cue from them. It will depend on if it's an asymptomatic or symptomatic case. It will depend on what days they would have been most contagious and whether they were in our buildings at that time or not. Who are the people who were closest to them, had close proximate contact, meaning close to them for at least 10 minutes. We give all of that information to the Department of Health, and they give us direction on what to do next. So there's not a set answer. Each circumstance will be looked at individually.
Okay, thank you. Here's one. Will RASP be offered on days that children are in school? That's in Sloatsburg, RASP, right?
Yes, we've reached out. We're waiting to hear back from RASP about what they are able to provide. And we are also in talks with the Y and awaiting, I believe the Y may have contacted families already, and they're getting ready to tell us what they can provide. But both of those programs we are allowing to run.
Great. A bus question. Are the buses being shared with any other schools in the county? And is there cleaning between each?
So as Mr. Schleicher mentioned, every run, there is a cleaning of the high touch areas between every run, and then a full entire bus cleaning daily. Some of our buses are shared with other schools in the county. And they'll follow the same procedures.
Okay. So I'm just going to answer this question. If your child is working with a PC at home and does not have a portable device, they should request one from the district, correct?
Yes.
And if you did not receive a charger when you got your device, please reach out to your school building. I'm seeing some of that as well. If students are getting breakfast when they walk into school, where are they eating that?
They eat their breakfast in the classroom on the elementary level.
At the high school, it's prepackaged, so they can eat in the cafeteria, or they can move on to the classroom as well.
At the middle school, we're going to start with them eating in the classrooms and kind of see how it goes. If we kind of get our bearings and we feel like we can open up the cafeteria with enough supervision, we may allow them to sit at the desks in the cafeteria.
Great. Along the lines of lunch and breakfast, lunch, students don't have to buy lunch. They can bring their own still, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we also asked that the lunch boxes on the elementary level are labeled. We are going to have more water bottles than we've ever had before. These spouts on the water fountains have a lock on them, so students do not have the option to press the fountain part. It's only the refillable water bottles, so please label water bottles and lunch boxes, not just the inside of the lunch box, but the outside as well. That will help us a lot to keep track of them. The items will be separated. We won't have like a bucket, like a big basket of lunch boxes like we used to. So we ask that you label everything.
Do we know if girls swim is happening? I know it was on the list of maybe happening.
We don't. I have not heard a final determination. The issue with girls swimming is there are not very many facilities. There's only a handful of facilities. And of course, there's an issue of locker room use during COVID. The actual swimming part isn't such an issue. It's more about the limited number of facilities and locker room use. So we are still waiting for Section 1 to make a determination on girls swim.
Okay, if students start out hybrid but then decide they want to go fully remote, can they do so? And then I guess vice versa, if they're starting out fully remote and want to move to hybrid, what is the plan for that?
Yes, so if a student starts out hybrid and wants to move to fully remote, they should just, at our fully remote form that we've asked people to complete actually closes tomorrow. So if you want to start out fully remote, and you have not yet filled out the form, there was a link in today's communication to that form again. Please fill that out by tomorrow at 3:00. If a student starts out hybrid and decides they want to go to remote, at that point they should contact their building. If you've already filled out the form and said that you want to be fully remote and changed your mind, please let your building know, but also understand that it's possible you may be placed in your non-alphabetical cohort based on available space. So yes, you can change your mind.
Okay. Can students walk to school?
Students can walk to school, but we don't have, because we offer universal busing, we don't have any crossing guards. We don't have any safety measures in place until they get to the building. So it would be the parents' responsibility to make sure they get to the building safely.
I've gotten a lot of questions about this one, Mrs. Weber. We have a lovely community school at RP Connor. So the parents that have reached out, I've shared that we do have a crossing guard, as Ms. Weber said, but it's right outside of the school. So you do have to get them safely there. You would leave your child at the drop-off circle and they would walk by themselves down the sidewalk and they would enter through either the K1 or the 2-5 doors. We have several parents that want to walk to pick up as well. You will follow the same pickup procedures as the car riders. You will go to the gym area. There'll be a cone there where the parents that are walking can line up there, and the security guard will take your license, you will sign out your child, and we will radio your child to exit through the gym doors. So we encourage you to either use your car or walk, whatever is convenient. But parents will not be walking down the sidewalk or hanging in front of the building for safety reasons.
We also got many questions from the condominiums across the street, the Round Post Circ. Because of the universal busing, there will not be a crossing guard there. And honestly, I was out there today and the sidewalks really don't lend to walking across the street and into the busy parking lot. So we are asking parents if they don't want their child to be on the bus. The Circ is the last students picked up and the first ones dropped off in the afternoon. But if you still don't want them to take the bus, to please drive them.
So communication was sent home for drop off and pickup. If that differs from what your plans are, whether using the bus or using your vehicle to pick up your child, if you can just please call the front office and we can help you with that practice. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Angela. That is a question. People wanted to know if they needed to opt out of the busing, but they just let the school know, especially elementary, I would think, right?
So, Ms. Mermelstein, it is about 8:15 now. So maybe if there's one or two more burning questions that we can take.
If there is space, can a student switch their cohort?
For the most part, no. But they can contact their building.
Here's a technical question for Mr. Schleicha. Is the ventilation forced air in the winter and warm months? Are the filters MERV 13 and are we looking into UV lights?
UV light system we actually were going to install, but when going through SED actually has not made up their mind. The facilities planning folks actually sent out a letter that's saying that they're still studying the UV lights. So we were brought to a halt with the UV lights, and I can tell you that most of our systems are up to a MERV 8, which is a standard filtration for most commercial buildings like we have in school buildings.
Okay, great. Questions about masks and making kids wear them all day and having mask breaks. But, oh, and then is Wednesday a 2-hour delay indefinitely? And do we know how long hybrid will last?
It's 2-hour delay during hybrid, which we don't know how long hybrid will last.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to really thank everybody. Thank you all to the administrators on this call. Thank you to all of our parents and students who participated, who took the time this evening to listen to all of this wonderful information, asked great questions. We cannot wait to see you. I am so excited for Thursday. Absolutely can't wait. And we just can't wait to see you. Looking forward to it. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.